I was thinking we could maybe just talk about the first couple of stages of the Prism launch before we even worry about sort of refracting and stuff. And if people have any questions about that, we could sort of maybe address those questions. And if people are wanting us to move on, we can do that, but hoping to sort of finish. We're already 6:05, but hopefully finish about 7 o'clock UK time. So go for maybe 50, 55 minutes. Hopefully everyone's okay with that. And obviously if you've got to drop out to do whatever you've got to do, that is completely okay.
Sounds good.
Cool. So I mean, the dates we have then for Prism Forge starting is the 25th of January. Is that still standing, Ryan?
As far as I understand, the phase 1 is scheduled for 7 a.m. or 7 a.m. UTC on the 25th. I think that's pretty fixed in.
Awesome. That was actually the question I was going to ask you. I wasn't sure exactly what time it started, but that is good to hear. And then we're going to just jump over to the article that you've released. For people who aren't aware, sorry, it's Discord issues again. Right, so I'm just going to share my screen. Don't think I'm doxing myself. Right, so for anyone that's not aware, I'm sure most of you already are, but from the Prism Twitter account, there's a link to their Notion site. Just get that up. So yeah, so the main Prism Twitter account, this link here opens up this site with essentially all the Prism information you might need. There's tons of great information here. I'm a big fan of the podcast. I think the way Hyperion sort of expresses himself in these podcasts is really great. I really enjoyed this one here, the GT Capital one. I don't know Terra not personally, but I thought the questioning was really top notch here. And one of my other favorites is this Delphi one. So if you're looking for more information about how Prism works, I would highly recommend these two. Just jumping over, from this Notion site, we can get the launch announcement, which is right near the top, just under the video. Here. And is my screen coming through okay?
Yeah, it's coming through great.
Okay, awesome. So if you've not read this yet, I would highly recommend that you do read it. But just as Ryan was saying there, the first phase of the Prism launch, Prism Forge, is going to be at 7 a.m. UTC on the 25th of January. So this is where we're going to get a chance to is it fair to say it's kind of like the Astroport sort of first or second phase of their sort of lock droppy thing, where we can put you guys. Sorry.
Yeah, I would say it's very similar but it's only a single-sided vault, so you can only deposit and withdraw UST, right? There's no Prism in circulation or that anyone's got that they can put in the other side. It's a fixed amount of 70 million.
100%. Yeah. I mean, that seems to be a question that comes up quite a lot on your Telegram. People asking for airdrops and stuff. But so just to be 100% clear, there is no Prism airdrop as far as I'm aware. These 70 million tokens are going to be the first Prism tokens that anyone has a chance to get their hands on.
Yeah, that's right. As far as I understand it, there's no airdrop, and there's no other way of getting your hands on the tokens before launch. This is the only way.
Awesome. So I mean, it might be on a sort of personal level, people might be a bit disappointed about not getting an airdrop. I think when we sort of take a step back and think about that, I think that's brilliant for the tokenomics. I mean, there's not going to be any dumpage of Prism tokens as soon as they're tradable. So it literally is going to be these 70 million tokens that we are going to be able to hold, and therefore once the sort of DEX is live, I mean, who's going to be selling Prism? I don't know. My initial idea was to not go into this Prism Forge and just wait and then buy some tokens on the open market. But I think if doing that by waiting, I'd end up paying more for my Prism tokens than if I go in on Prism Forge. So my understanding of the way this is going to work is for the first 4 days from the 25th of January, I'm going to be able to deposit some UST into this pool, and that's my money is going to get pooled with everyone else that's sort of paying into or putting money into the pool. And then at the end of the 5th day, I'm going to receive a certain amount of Prism tokens. Quite how much I'm going to get, I don't know, because that really depends on how much UST in total ends up in the pool. I've got a sort of price in my head that maybe if Prism goes over $5 a token, I might start to reconsider. But I'm not certain. To be honest, I don't think I will. I think I'm just going to put my money in, and then whatever the price of Prism tokens, that's the price that I'm paying. Because I think holding Prism, especially at the beginning of the protocol, is going to be super exciting. I can talk about what I mean. The reason I put DMX on there was that at Orbital Command, we've been talking about staking our Prism to hold X Prism and then get a share of all these swap fees, staking rewards, and there was what was the other one? The limit order fees, I think, are going to be really quite exciting. So as far as stage 1 is concerned, Ryan, is that about right? We just put our money in, we wait, and then at the end of the 5th day, we'll receive our tokens. So that would be on what, the 30th of January?
So I think there's maybe a slight bit more nuance that to add, which is, so during, as you say, like during days 1 to 4, you can deposit some UST. You can, if you think that the Prism token is overvalued, as you say, you can withdraw some or all of your UST. If you think it's undervalued, I guess you can add UST. So it's completely flexible. Days 1 to 4, you can go in and out. You can top up. You can partially withdraw. There's a lot of flexibility there in terms of how you interact. But ultimately, it's just deciding upon an amount of UST that you're comfortable with, and hopefully you'll show the launch screen shortly, which really like gives you an idea of how much. What the cost is per Prism token, how much you'll get for your UST. So that first 4 days is really flexible, and I think day 5 is slightly different in that there's no more depositing. You can only withdraw, and you can withdraw a decreasing amount of UST over the 24-hour period. It drops down every hour by about 4.2%. So in the first hour, you can withdraw up to 96% of your UST if you wish to, or as the clock ticks down to the last hour, you'll be able to withdraw up to 4% of your UST in the last hour. Not personally expecting that there'll be a large amount of movement in that last 24-hour period. I don't think we saw a huge amount of movement during the Astroport withdrawal period, which is very similar. It was a very similar experience, and the reason that final bit has been put in, I think Mr. Refractor explained it well last night, is that there was some concern. When I first saw this launch method, I was concerned that whales come in, they put tens, potentially even hundreds of millions of UST into the first stage. They put people off by overpricing the Prism token, and then they wait right until the last second on day 5 to withdraw the UST that they don't want to use, and decrease the price significantly, which then would have deterred a whole bunch of people who maybe wanted to participate from participating. So I think that sort of staggered withdrawal, where you can withdraw less and less each hour, it really helps kind of avoid that situation. I think the only other thing to mention is that you can only make one withdrawal during the last 24-hour period as well. So it's not like you can withdraw a little bit, then a little bit more, then a little bit more. It's one withdrawal only per wallet during that period.
Absolutely. And I think, as you say, yep, I thought Hyperion did a great job of explaining why Prism have decided to sort of take these steps. And I can't imagine that whales are going to sort of get up to too many games, because it doesn't seem, from the steps that are in place, it doesn't seem really possible to game the system.
The only thing that I've thought about in terms of how people could game this if they really wanted to would be maybe to have multiple wallets with large amounts and then withdraw large amounts in hour 1 of day 5. But I personally don't think that much of that will happen.
And then I suppose if I've already decided to put in $1,000, there are people withdrawing. I mean, that only benefits me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm
I mean, when I was thinking about my own personal investment strategy for Prism, I probably overthought it initially. I think probably what I'll do personally is I'll decide, is there an amount of UST that I want to invest, and I'll probably just put it in there and just leave it and see what happens. Unless, as you say, like the price gets to a ridiculously high price.
Exactly. I mean, I don't really know exactly what is a ridiculously high price, but I just want to have some Prism, I think. Initially, I was thinking I want to use Prism. I mean, I'm more excited maybe to use Prism than hold Prism, but I'm actually getting super excited about holding Prism and then staking it. I think that's just going to be a really good play for me. Sorry, you were talking. Someone going to jump in? Is that?
Yeah. Hey, it's Jimmy. I just wanted to, just chime in and mention, some of the design around, the tokenomics, the emissions, and this first phase of the launch has, really learned a lot from all of the other, Terra alt launches, especially for Astroport and some of the, I guess the good things and the bad things about Astroport. And we really tried to just like simplify the launch as much as possible, right? There's no, of course, we're not a DEX. Well, we're not trying to just attract only LPs, right? Our primary focus is to be refracting tokens. So we don't have this idea of like incentivizing liquidity, like large liquidity providers with a bunch of Prism tokens and having large emissions of Prism tokens to, bring people to essentially LP any of these pairs. It really is quite simple. You just deposit UST and everyone gets the same price at the end of day 5, right? And you don't have to think too much about, the tokenomics or venture capitalists who will dump on you if they have any, TGE that's gonna, be released to them at the beginning. Like there's none of that, right? And like you alluded to earlier as well, like there's no airdrops. And we know what happened to, a lot of these other protocols when airdrops were announced or airdrops were claimable, and we saw crazy price action happen for, when airdrops for Astroport were available, airdrops for Valkyrie were available. It's just like it creates, it's nice as like a Lunar holder, but then it becomes very volatile for the actual participants in that particular protocol, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So the alternative now is like, okay, you're not going to get, airdrops for being a passive Luna holder or Luna staker. But if you go through the Prism launch and you go to, you find your way, you get your hands on some Y Luna and you stake it in, the Y Luna farm somehow. That's essentially the alternative to the airdrop. We're rewarding folks that participate and hold and stake Y Luna with the protocol itself.
Yeah, I mean, when we get to stage 3, and then start to see how market is pricing P and Y Luna, I think that's going to be so exciting. Just like, I mean, I've been thinking about going all into P Luna or all into Y Luna, but I mean, I don't think, well, certainly I can't decide what I'm going to do yet until I see the relative pricing.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of discussion around, how things are priced, on, more TradFi terms, and folks bringing in the composability and the utility of these additional DeFi tokens and their components. And it's just a lot of fun to just like hear everyone's kind of thoughts. And I don't think anyone is particularly wrong in any sense. It's just new, different, and it's a new primitive for the Terra ecosystem.
Well, certainly last night I remember Ryan was reining you in about becoming too much of an imaginor on the call. So like I think we've sort of gone over phase one, but would anyone like to ask Jimmy, Ryan, anything about phase one before we get too carried away with refracting?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
If I'm audible.
Yep. Can you just say your name?
So
is it Frugal? Frugal, hiya.
Yeah, it's Frugal. So the question was like, is there a realistic price that we could achieve after phase one? So like you said, if it reaches $5, then you might like pull out some of your USD or something like that. But for that to happen, like if there's 70 million tokens and if the price is like $5, that means like 5 times of like 70 million was deposited, so 350 million or something. So like, do we know like from past projects or something that like what could be the ideal amount that would be submitted, and then based on that we can like kind of see what is the price that we could look at?
I mean, personally, I'm thinking round about $3 maybe, but I have no idea. Don't know. But
Same. Like I have no idea. We have no idea what the market will price, the Prism token at. And with the tool that I kind of created, that I pinned on my Twitter account, it kind of helps folks kind of just gauge their assumptions, right? Like the price of Prism, the value accrual of Prism, like what you could expect the APR to be, right? Like if the Prism token, was priced at $5, and that would mean that the revenue coming from all the value accrual methods needs to be quite high for you to achieve any kind of significant like single staking PR figure for X Prism, right? Whereas if like the price of Prism was low relative to its value capture, then you could see like the APRs for a single staking X Prism go quite high, right? And then the market will kind of decide like, okay, based on the value accrual of Prism, like what am I happy paying for Prism and staking Prism? And I think for everyone, that number is a little bit different, right? Like if you're a total degenerate and you're only like 6-figure APRs and that's it, then this probably won't be for you, right? But if you're happy with like 20 or 30% APR based on your assumptions, like maybe it works for you. But yeah, so like I don't think any of us really knows for sure like what's too high of a price. I think it depends on like a lot of things. And I hope like the tool that I made will kind of help you kind of gauge and guesstimate what the numbers will kind of land at. And to kind of help you guys out too, we're really impressed by some of the folks over at Flipside Crypto. And if you're in the Discord, it's called like the Cantina, where a bunch of these bounty hunters hang out. And so we've kind of engaged with them to, instead of doing like a post-mortem of like, oh, what happened during Astroport launch or what happened during like the phase 2 or phase 1, we've kind of given them the tools and the queries and the contracts they need to build out these I guess like real-time data dashboards to show like, all right, not only how much UST is being deposited, but when, and like say like what's your average wallet that's depositing, are people withdrawing, so giving you all these data points during that phase one, during the first 4 days, and especially on the last day as well, where you can kind of start to see like, are people withdrawing a lot, are they depositing a lot, and when is that happening, to give you some better insights to make a decision for yourself as well.
That sounds pretty awesome. And do we have to join the Flipside Crypto Discord? Have access to that?
No, I think they'll be making that dashboard available on their website. So
wow, brilliant.
Yeah, so it'll be like live, as live as their tables update. For the first phase.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Yeah. So on the 25th, the first phase, when we deposit our UST, are we getting a Prism token in return? And on day 5, is it the Prism token where we can withdraw, or we are withdrawing the UST? It's not clear.
Do you want to go for this one, Jimmy, just so it's the 100% accurate information?
Yeah. So for the first 4 days, you can deposit and withdraw UST as much as you'd like, right? But on that final day, you're only going to be able to withdraw UST one time. And the amount of UST that you can withdraw that one time decreases as the day goes on, all the way down to 0. And then at the end of the first phase, all 5 days, timers are all over, then you'll be able to redeem the amount of Prism relative to the amount of UST that's in the pool. So everyone will get the same price for the Prism token, and the amount of Prism tokens that you receive is just based on how much UST that you deposited. You will not be receiving any UST back after the timer has ended.
So essentially we are... Sorry, carry on.
So basically the exact amount of UST I deposited is the exact amount I'll be able to withdraw at the 5th day?
In Prism value. So you, at the very last day, you won't be able to receive no more UST will be able to be withdrawn. Once the timers are all over, you'll only be receiving Prism.
Okay, got it. So hopefully the price of Prism would have increased within the 5 days, so I'll probably have made a profit on my UST. That's what it means, right?
So there won't be any kind of profit or loss. Everyone will be getting the same price.
Yes. So just to clarify, I can put it in simple terms, right? So there's 70 million Prism available. If after the end of day 5, that let's just say there's 70 million UST in the pool, that means that everyone who contributed would be getting the exact same price of $1 per Prism. So if you've put $100 in, you'd get 100 Prism. $1,000, you'd get 1,000 Prism, and everyone would get the same price of Prism.
Okay, got it.
And I think that sort of leads on quite nicely to the next stage of Prism.
Can I just add one little thing to
Sure.
the discussion that you were having around price? So I don't want to speculate too much on what the price is. I think I'd be really shocked if we were able to get to a $3 or $5 Prism, as you guys were discussing, because I think that's a lot of UST that'd be flowing in. But who knows? I mean, I think Astroport did get a large amount. But I just wanted to point to an article on the Notion, if you can go there, Rebel. There's a really good article by someone who's in the GT Capital group. If you scroll down, where are the articles? So I'll scroll up a little bit, sorry. You got a slightly different view to me. There's an article called Prism, What's It Worth? And it's an article by someone who works in TradFi, who's done a lot of analysis in terms of like the potential yield of Prism, the potential revenue generated, and how that might relate to market cap and token price. Yep. That's the one. There we go. That's a really good read for anyone who's maybe not too sure about what might be a good price or market cap for Prism.
And I'll even add, there are parts of my tool that's missing from this article and vice versa, right? I think there are so many value accrual methods that the protocol lends itself to, being able to charge free fees, that I think, and it's so extensible too, right? And we're only, all of these fees that we're kind of speculating on is only on Y Luna, as well as Y ETH, right? But the scope can be quite expansive for all these other proof of stake assets and being able to bridge assets over from Wormhole and IBC to be able to refract. I think the prospects and the future roadmap is going to be pretty thick for the protocol.
Also, another question: would there be any benefits to me if I do not withdraw my UST on the 5th day? Say I keep it on and on.
Right, just so we're clear, it's my understanding of the UST. Right, so we are putting UST into a pool, and with that UST, we are going to get Prism tokens. If you withdraw your UST, you don't get Prism tokens. So if you want Prism tokens, you leave them in, and then at the end of the 5th day, Prism keeps your money, and you get Prism tokens. That's my understanding of what we're doing. So there would be no reason to take your UST back unless you don't want to play the game. So if you're thinking of taking your UST back, I would just not put it in.
Okay, got it. It's clear enough.
Does that make sense? So like Prism Forge is about us buying Prism tokens. At the moment, we don't know the price of the Prism tokens because we don't know how many or how much UST is going into the Prism Forge.
So basically, this is just about price discovery, I would say.
100%, yeah. So then, and what's beautiful about it, from what Ryan and Jimmy have said, is that like there's no one's getting airdrops. There's no venture capitalists that are going to just dump on us as soon as the token price goes live, or as soon as the token goes live. So like, if the price of Prism in Prism Forge is sort of discovered to be $1, when Prism goes live, it'll be trading at $1. And personally, I think it will. Like if I put in money and bought Prism tokens at $1, I'm not going to sell them at $1. The only way I would be selling these tokens is if there's a massive spike in price. But that's not really my plan anyway. So
yeah, I was thinking, why would anybody want to remove their UST on the 5th day anyway?
Yeah. One thing I wonder, I don't know if Ryan or Jimmy can help us with, but like there's the 70 million Prism tokens that are going to be sold in Prism Forge, and then they'll go to individuals who've bought the Prism tokens. But then as soon as that period is finished, when we move into stage 2, there's going to be a Prism UST pool. So do we know how many Prism tokens are going into that pool?
So Jimmy can jump in if I get anything wrong here, but I think so the UST that's been raised during the Forge event will ultimately go to seeding all the 7 liquidity pools that are going to be on the Prism swap AMM. The Prism on the other side of those LPs will come from the treasury allocation. So I think there's 20% of tokens that are in the treasury. I think it's to be confirmed how much Prism from the treasury will go into seeding the liquidity pools, because I think essentially waiting on what will be the price of Prism before determining how much of the Prism goes into the liquidity pools.
Yeah, I think that's completely right. Yeah, we just don't know the price Prism, and we don't know the price of Luna that's going to be, the amount of Luna and the price of Luna at the time that Prism will be paired with, all of the LPs. So yeah, I think we'll be on the lookout for that on the exact amount of tokens and liquidity as we get a little bit closer to phase 2 and phase 3.
Awesome. I was wondering, Ryan, you might have an image that you could share. It's apparently public, but I've not seen it, I don't think. Is this a screenshot of Prism Forge might look like or something?
I think Hyperion threw some in the Orbital chat with you guys.
Oh, wow, okay. So are we allowed to share these?
Yes. You might want to stop sharing your screen while you go grab them.
Good shout, yeah. Right.
I think when people see the screenshots, it'll
Make a lot
solidify.
more sense. Having a quick scroll through. And what can you sort of talk us through what these screenshots are just while I'm searching? I've got it. Well, I think, yeah, Hyperion shared them on Twitter, so they're definitely in the public domain. Oh, wow, it looks pretty epic. In fact, I'll tell you, I'll just share this tweet. So it's a tweet from January the 16th. So yeah, certainly been out for a little while.
Guys, I just hopped on. Did I miss the talk?
Yeah, kind of. But we're doing a sort of Q&A and we're sort of rounding things off. So if you've got questions, you're more than welcome to shoot them in. I mean, it will be going up. I might maybe in an edited version be going up onto YouTube.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, my main question is just around borrowing against the Luna using Prism, and how that would work to leverage my Luna to, get more Luna, basically. I mean, kind of looking for alternatives potentially to anchor if the interest rate, is going to stay at 4%, like -4%. I'm wondering if there's a better way, basically, using Prism, so I don't have to pay as much.
You've definitely not missed that part of the call. All we've talked about so far is really just the stage 1, Prism Forge, and swapping our UST to get Prism tokens.
Oh, got it.
There's lots of more advanced stuff coming out over the coming week and before the launch event. So I mean, I think we're going to on these Discord calls, we're going to sort of just go through slowly some different things that we can do. Jimmy has one maybe later in the week. Where he's going. What have you and Danku decided what you're talking about?
Yeah, we're going to be going through, I'm sure we'll do like an overview, but for the most part, we're going to dive a bit deeper into the dashboard tool that I've created to help people kind of get an idea of what numbers should go in these assumptions so they can kind of plan out at what dollar value does Prism make sense for them. It's based on their assumptions and based on the amount of value accrual back to Prism and X Prism.
Awesome. So there's still plenty of stuff, plenty of opportunities to learn the more advanced stuff. But yeah, this is a screenshot that Ryan had been talking about. That looks pretty exciting. Yeah. And have you guys, Ryan and Jimmy, have you played around on a sort of test net with this stuff? Is that something you can share?
Yeah, I can personally say that I played around with the testnet. We've like sped up this initial phase where it's only like a day or two for each one rather than like the entire time period, and just made sure everything works. You can deposit UST, you can withdraw UST, and at the end you can redeem your Prism tokens. So yeah, we've just been playing around with it and giving our feedback to the design and engineering team.
Awesome. I mean, just looking at this screenshot, it looks super clean, super easy to use, which is the kind of vibe that I'm getting from Prism.
Yeah, it's going to be really simple here. You know, you can see on this screenshot, it's going to show you how much UST you've deposited, what the current price of Prism is based on the total amount of UST in the vault, and the expected amount of Prism that you'll receive. Like, hopefully, when people see this and start to interact with it, it'll make a lot. Everything will be clear and it'll make sense.
100%. Yeah. Any of the other guys from World Command got any comments that you'd like to share just now, or anyone else with a question?
I've got a question. I was curious, Prism seems like a pretty foundational protocol, kind of like Anchor. And the great thing about DeFi is protocols can build on top of each other. There's some things about DeFi that can be frustrating, the wallet and all the rigmarole. But I think why I'm bullish on DeFi is because of that fact that multiple protocols can build on top of each other. Have you guys thought about who might build on top of Prism? I mean, maybe like Pylon or Angel or some of these others that depend on stable yield, or anything else we haven't even thought about?
Yeah, I've got some ideas. So I think we've seen some success with Apollo DAO's community farming event, right? Where you essentially, give up your LP incentives in exchange for some token that's launching soon that's looking to raise money. Apollo did that for their own token, and then Angel Protocol also did that with their Halo token, and those were quite successful and raised a lot of money for them. I think the biggest drawback for the community farming event with like regular LP tokens is that you kind of subject yourself to quite a bit of price action and permanent loss when the community farming event is going on, right? Like, I think what we saw with Apollo, I think the Mine token and the Anchor token just like went straight through the roof because people were so excited about getting their hands on these Apollo tokens, and those LP pairs offered the highest yield. So yeah, it was quote unquote lossless, farming, but still you had risks associated with just holding LP position. I think the cool part about the Prism Farm is that it'll allow you to use the staking yield from like Y Luna or YE to essentially purchase these tokens in a farming event. But I think in the future it'd be really cool too when we start refracting LP tokens themselves, right? So there's a portion of the LP token that just represents the tokens, the tokens, and you're subject to impermanent loss with the principal of the LP tokens. And then you have the yield portion of these LP tokens that accrue all of the swap fees and accrue all of the incentives of a normal LP position, but it does not have impermanent loss. So I imagine like this Prism farm could be incredibly interesting for folks who want to farm tokens in a way that doesn't subject you to any impermanent loss. I think that would be really cool to kind of see. And then the other thing that I'm super interested in that, combining these DeFi building blocks is using Y Luna in conjunction with kinetic money, right? And I think most people understand that, kinetic money allows you to just take a loan based on your UST deposits, and that loan is being automatically repaid by the UST going to work on Anchor or going to work in other, money market yield generating events. But the unique thing that we have on Terra that other chains don't is that our staking rewards from Luna can be natively mint. We can natively mint them back to UST and accelerate the rate in which our loans are being repaid on kinetic money by say staking our Y Luna with kinetic money. I think those are like the two that I'm most interested in checking out and seeing come to fruition, like in the near future. But of course, like who knows what the landscape will look like 6 months, a year from now. But I'm definitely excited on working with other teams and partnering up with them and collaborating to just extend the usability of these yield and principal tokens.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, not having to worry about impermanent loss with your LP tokens and accelerating self-replaying loans. Two very amazing options there. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I would echo what you said, Joseph. I see Prism as one of these kind of base layer protocols on Terra, probably alongside Anchor and Mirror, that people can build upon and utilize the new asset classes that have been created to work in other protocols. So, it's not beyond the realms to think of something like Y Luna as collateral in Anchor, to think of maybe a 2xp Luna token in Lavana protocol. To think about, as Jimmy was saying, about Y Luna farming, Y Luna pools within Prism protocol. I think there's so many possibilities.
Nice.
That was interesting, guys. Thank you for that discussion. I'd love to jump in and carry on talking about kinetic money, but maybe I should try and keep it focused on Prism for now. When you were telling us about these ideas, Jimmy, one thing that popped into my mind is, I know you're announced as being now part of Prism. Does your role, can you tell us more about what your role actually is, or is your role basically whatever you want it to be, if it's not too personal?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not too personal. I think I'm able to quote unquote just like be myself in this role, right, and focus my energy and efforts around Prism and extending the usability of Prism. I think previously, behind the scenes at GT Capital, a lot of my efforts were spread out across many different protocols and advising them behind the scenes on many different things, from go-to-market strategies and tokenomics and usability, and just having them understand the landscape. But joining Prism Protocol allows me to essentially just focus all those efforts closely on one protocol. Yeah, just like do a bit of everything, right? Wear a bunch of hats. Maybe it's business development one day and partnerships one day, making memes another day, doing threads, and just doing partnerships behind the scenes. Yeah, it's a lot and it's fun. And if the role was a bit too defined anyway, I think I would be uninterested. So I think this early on, it gives me a lot of flexibility to do a lot of things, wear a lot of hats, and just at any given time, just focus on whatever's best for the protocol.
Sure. Also, well, it's great to hear you still get to wear the meme lord hat, so that's great. Would anyone else like to jump in with a question about the sort of not the beginnings, but the Prism Forge part of the Prism token launch? And if not, maybe we could just call it here. I know Ryan and Jimmy are going to be busy later tonight. I'm definitely going to be listening in to the Galactic Punks call myself as a holder and just as an interested party. Zion, are you here? You got anything you'd like to add?
No, I think this has been great. I mean, you guys gave a fantastic overview of phase one, and also some additional insights. And so, yeah, I think it's good.
Awesome. Well, I mean, we certainly will be doing more of these. Certainly once Prism Forge is launched, this screen sharing platform, I think, is going to be quite good on Discord, just to sort of go through it live, show people what we're getting up to.
One other thing I would add is once like phase 2 and phase 3 start going, I think phase 3 is really like the big phase, right? This is where you can, stake your Prism for X Prism. This is where you can refract your Luna into P Luna and Y Luna. Like this is limit order time. This is, liquidity pool time. Like this is, like a lot of different really cool implementations for this launch for Prism will be happening in phase 3. So we'll definitely be doing a screen sharing event for that, if not multiple, to talk through there's a lot to unpack there for that one. So I think that will be one where we do a couple of these types of events with screen sharing.
100%. And I think it'll be so interesting just watching the relative pricing of P and Y Luna changing live in front of our eyes.
Yeah, definitely.
One final question for Jimmy or Ryan then, just so I've got this straight in my head. The limit orders, we'll be able to put limit orders on the Prism platform using AUST. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely right. So,
Awesome.
yeah, the details I'm not totally sure about, because I'm thinking that if you have some AUST that you deposit, and maybe you set some ridiculous candle for a Luna buy, maybe you want to buy Luna at $50, and you don't mind waiting a whole year for that, and you just deposit some AUST in there. So I think to me it should mean that say 6 months in, your buy for $50 Luna would equal X amount, but then the longer that you have the AUST in there, the more Luna would be able to buy, right, at that given price. So yeah, I'm definitely curious to see a little bit more of the documentation that coming out, so we can dive into the details about the limit orders as well.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and just to add, so essentially my understanding is that you'll be able to leave limit orders between any of the 7 or 8 tokens that are on the Prism AMM. So for example, if you wanted to swap Luna to C Luna, and you were waiting for maybe a dip in C Luna, so, like you do Luna to B Luna, maybe you're waiting for a 3 to 5% dip, then you could leave an order that's looking for a 5% dip in C Luna, for example. So there's many different options for those limit orders.
Absolutely. That was funny. Sorry, Ryan, when you came back on speaking, I was looking for you. I was like, where's Ryan? Where's Ryan? And I just saw this little green toad flashing up. What is that NFT you've got?
It's a Space Toad. I don't use Discord very much, so I think it was Space Toads was like a Galactic Punk stealth launch a few months back.
Right.
Say it as my display picture. I haven't changed it since.
Looks cool. Looks rare. All right, guys. Well, thank you everyone for being on. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Ryan, for attending. Thanks everyone for dropping in. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more about the Prism Forge Stage 1 launch, and stay in touch with Prism on Twitter. Follow OC as well. We've got some stuff coming out regarding future events. And then tonight, in about 2 hours' time, I believe there's a Galactic Punks AMA with Prism people. Hyperion, Jimmy, Ryan, you both on this as well, yeah?
We'll be dropping in.
Okay, awesome. So thanks for coming, guys. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, Rebel. Thanks, OC. Love your work.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.